COVID has made a lot of things harder over the past couple of years, and near the top of that list, caring for loved ones who need it most. Even in pre-pandemic times, many unpaid caregivers work the equivalent of a full-time job, providing help to ailing or aging family members. Now, as the Boston Globe recently highlighted, the roughly 20% of working adults who comprise this invisible backbone of society is increasingly being pushed to the edge of what is possible and healthy. It's a reality my guests know all too well. Peri Beltre cares for her mother in their shared home in Lynn, and Alexandra Drane, who's done some caregiving of her own, is the co-founder and CEO of Archangels, an advocacy group with roots here in Boston. Alex and Peri, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Alex, ARP says the number, did a double take, 53 million unpaid caregivers in the country, 1 million in Massachusetts alone. Who are these people? Can you paint a picture of the typical person in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. They're everyone you would expect and everyone you would not expect as well. In fact, the latest study that we were part of as of COVID, actually the number is higher. It's 43% of adults across the US are in this role. 1 in 4 millennial, 1 in 5 are Gen Z. So it's not the picture of the 46-year-old woman caring for her mom, although she is. There's a far greater population. And the job is intense. It is another job, and we're hoping people can get support in that job.
My understanding, even though it goes across the board, Alex, my understanding is it particularly falls on the shoulders of women, people of color, those over 50. Is that a fair characterization?
You know, I know that was absolutely true before COVID. I think as of COVID, we are seeing, in addition to those populations, it's also falling on younger individuals. So folks, first generation, second generation, multi-generation households, sandwich generation households, where this incredible amount of care is being sort of split out across the family in order to do the amount of work that has to get done.
Peri, it sounds like Alex is talking about you. Can you describe what you and your sister have been doing?
Yes. So I started smiling because it has even affected my nephews who are 14 and 15. When we need a buffer so that we could go do something, they help out as well. So we have a rotation where my sister and I do about 30 to 45 hours a week. She does about 30 to 40 hours a week. And our brothers assist when they can. And even, as I said, my nephews, whenever they're around, they may cover and help my mom out for 2 hours so that we could do things. It's an all-encompassing, always exhausting labor of love.
So 30 to 45 hours taking care of your mother, just your share. You have a job in addition to this, correct, Peri?
Correct. I actually just walked out of the courthouse and I've been here since 9 o'clock and I didn't get to make it to my office for this, just to go to show you that I'm running from one thing to another. I work 40 to 55, 60 hours, depending on a case or my needs. And then because of the overnight shift that we do and my weekend hours with my mother, it's another 35 to 45 hours.
Is a nursing home something you and your siblings consider or no?
No, that's not even an option. It's cultural, it's duty, it's moral. That's not even an option.
Alex, you could see it in Peri's face. I hope she doesn't take this the wrong way. The stress, the fatigue. Obviously, it's a financial burden. Let me read one paragraph from the Globe story. This is data thanks to the Family Caregiver Alliance. Those over the age of 50 who leave the labor force are estimated to be losing out on more than $300,000 in wages, benefits, retirement funds over their professional lifetimes. People of color whose communities were hit hard by the pandemic also become caregivers a decade earlier on average than white caregivers. In addition to the financial burden, which is obviously immense, fewer hours or no hours at the workplace, what are the other kinds of burdens that these unpaid caregivers experience, Alex?
Well, it's an extraordinary toll on your own mental health, right? I mean, there's a metric that we use at Archangels called the Caregiver Intensity Index, and it is a 2.5-minute quiz. It puts you in the green, yellow, or red. If you're in the red, you're having the highest level of intensity. Before COVID, about 8% of us were in the red. As of COVID, it was 24%. In the last month, that number has jumped to 29%. And what's interesting is if you are in the red, 91% are struggling with either anxiety, depression, and or suicidal ideation. So what you need is the equivalent of a red phone, right? We're hoping that employers can step up and actually provide some of this support so beautiful souls like yourself can be getting more home care, more navigation assistance, more ability to get access to a social worker or someone to help with your own mental condition.
By the way, when Alex was talking about beautiful souls like yourself, believe me, she was not talking about me. She was talking about Peri. I want to be totally clear. You know, Alex, staying with you for a second, I'm so glad you brought up the employer thing. You know, hopefully a motivation for an employer to help would be morality, decency, humanity. Even if they don't give a damn about any of those things, we all know about the labor shortage. Part of the reason for the labor shortage is what people like Peri and millions of others are doing. So isn't it in their economic self-interest to come to the aid of their workers who are in this kind of a mess?
Yes, it is, absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to the state of Massachusetts because actually, we are a state where a group of employers have formed called the Mass Caregiver Coalition, where they are specifically stating this is an invisible backbone. This is a workforce that we need to be able to be present at work in order to keep the economy running in the Commonwealth. So I do believe there's finally attention by employers towards this issue.
You know, Peri, I assume most viewers know that Joe Biden originally proposed 12 weeks of paid family leave for things like this, then 4, and then it disappeared. The state a year or so ago did do up to 12 weeks of paid family leave in certain circumstances to take care of a relative who is ill. Are you able to access any support, financial benefits, that sort of thing, to help you in this mess?
Me personally, no, because I'm also my own employer. I have my own law firm. I have employees. And so if I'm not there to bring in the revenue, then I can't. It's just, it's a difficult situation. I mean, I'm eligible in the sense that I'm an employee of my firm, but as far as like the Massachusetts paid leave, but no.
How about your sister or either of your brothers?
So my sister, as the article states, she's a professor at Bentley. Yeah. This is, I think, her second full semester year. And so it's not tenable, it's not feasible. It's similar to what was in the article. We are foregoing career opportunities, upward mobility, lateral moves because of our obligations to take care of our parents. And myself and my siblings, we would do it in a heartbeat. So if it means I'm making 20, 30, 40, 50 grand less a year, I wouldn't think twice about it, but that it doesn't come with consequences. You know, it is what it is.
Alex, you're quoted on your website, the Archangel website, as saying underutilized resources exist to support them, meaning that, well, obviously underutilized means what it means. What are those kinds of things? I don't mean specific names, but types of things that might be available to the Peris of the world and the other million people doing something like what she's doing in our state.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer that 2 ways. One, I hope any employers that are listening, recognizing the skill set of a Peri, you should be recruiting unpaid caregivers as fast as you can because they are resourceful, because they are multitaskers, because they are innovators, right? I mean, this is a workforce that is highly talented, even though it's invisible. If you go to Mass Options or the Mass Family Caregiver Support Program, for example, which is funded by the state of Massachusetts, social workers, help with navigation, help with getting access to home care, right? These are the sorts of resources that exist. Most employers have, or many have, an employee assistance program. The challenge is unpaid caregivers don't know they exist because guess what? Peri, I'm guessing before this, you didn't think of yourself as an unpaid caregiver, right? You're just a daughter. Absolutely. And so what happens is when employers are offering support, they say, hey, caregivers, we can support you. And the vast majority of caregivers who need the most support are like, what? What's that? That's not me. And so employers need to change their language, use language people understand, and then crosswalk people over to these resources.
Peri, we only have a minute left. Do you have hope that there's a light at the end of this tunnel for you and your siblings, or is your attitude this is an obligation, responsibility for somebody I love, and I'm just going to grin and bear it?
No, I think it's twofold. So my mother is a patient at Dana-Farber and Brigham. She's at the best place possible, and they support us as they can. We're in a situation where you have my mom is not elderly, and she doesn't meet certain age requirements for certain assistance. So we do hope that there's an opportunity for some change as to people who are frail and or severely disabled. But it's a two-way street. I'd like more help, but I would never change my circumstances in as much as helping her. I'd like to sleep a little bit more, but we're here for her.
It's pretty clear to me that you are here for her, you and your siblings. Peri and Alex, I really appreciate your time and good luck with what you're both doing. I appreciate it.